From the backlash against Selena Gomez's viral crying video to the downfall of Diddy's empire, it looks like the age of untouchable celebrities is crumbling. What can the current and past planetary alignments tell us about this unfolding reality? Let's dive in. Welcome back to Numinous Realm. You're tuning in to a monthly series called Cosmos of Culture, where we dive into the biggest cultural moments through an astrological archetypal lens. I'm Somya, an archetypal astrologer, designer, and cultural historian. And joining me today is my co-host, Veronica.
Hello, my name is Veronica. I'm currently a student in the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program at CIIS, studying archetypal astrology. I'm very excited to be here.
So it does seem like there's so much happening in the world. I mean, the biggest thing that's occurring right now is the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni drama, and that looks like it's going to continue to unfold. I mean, they're set to go to court next year in March. So wow, like that's like a whole year ahead of us. Who knows what's going to happen, how things are going to turn out. But yeah, I think, there's just this consensus now that these celebrities do not seem like they used to be. There's this sort of a crumbling of an image that we had of them that is no longer the case. And I think there's a couple of planetary alignments. Obviously there's always so many happening at the same time, and so what we can do is we can dive into these alignments that are happening right now and look back at history and just find out what is this moment through an archetypal lens telling us about this reality that's unfolding right now, about the death of celebrity culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've been kind of like seeing this for a good while now. And as we'll talk about throughout the podcast, it's pretty clear how that has happened with all of the transits that have been happening for not only the last years, but even like decades. So yeah, I feel like it's been like a slow process in which celebrity culture has both kind of like grown, and then also at the same time it's been crumbling. And now we can see kind of like I don't know if it's the climax, because we don't know if it's gonna get worse, or I mean it seems like it is, but yeah, I feel like we are kind of like at a point in which like all of it is boiling, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It does feel like a peak moment where everyone is watching, similar to the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. I mean, everyone's, correlating this Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively situation to that, and so it's interesting to see what is actually going on there. And I thought maybe we could start with the Uranus-Pluto alignment, which is it's an alignment that's happening right now. It started in 2021, and it's going to go on till 2032. And we were in a previous configuration of it, meaning that it was in a different angular alignment from 2007 to also 2021. Sometimes it seems like these alignments just happen continuously, but that is not the case, because before the 2010s, we had the major Uranus-Pluto alignment in the 60s. And so definitely we can see how the 60s, if we just take this moment to look at the 60s and the 2010s and how those were similar in terms of celebrity status and whatnot, we can just start to maybe understand the flavors of what this decade is going to be about as well. So in the 50s, Hollywood was in its golden age, and there was a lot of stuff that was happening that in terms of the studio system, I think was sort of coming to an end, where the studios owned the distribution rights and the actors, and in the 60s, everything, all of that completely changed, especially as television was coming into the houses. This sort of having to go to the theater and watching the movies of these celebrities was slowly starting to become democratized. That's the nature of Uranus-Pluto, that things, especially related to technology, become democratized. So already that sense of when you go to the cinema, it's a big moment, right? You're going to go and watch these celebrities on a big screen. This idea of them being otherworldly is now shifting, because now they're in your home. And so that in itself, the relationship changes, and if we're just comparing that to the 2010s and how, how that correlates, obviously iPhone and social media, that was the biggest thing that occurred in the 2010s, that was similar to the Uranus-Pluto conjunction of the 60s, where everyone had a TV. Now we have social media. Now we are following our celebrity idols. We can actually just see what they are doing on a day-to-day basis, depending on how much they share. So yeah, how do you think that sort of democratization is creates a bit of a shift in our relationship to these celebrities?
What I was thinking, maybe not the answer to the question, but I do think that it's interesting how we see uh, in both Uranus-Pluto eras, how we see technology and kind of like technological advancements. Sorry for my accent, but yeah, uh, we basically see like technological inventions or just the advancement of technology in general kind of like influencing this celebrity culture, because like when you think of Uranus-Pluto, like one of the main themes that we think about is technology and kind of like the empowerment Pluto of technology, Uranus, or I mean, we can see it in many different ways, but it's one of the things that we usually think about with Uranus-Pluto, and how the theme of like the uh, like shifts in celebrity culture also overlaps is really interesting. Um, that's, I mean, yeah, that's something that I thought about. Um, but yeah, definitely correct that in both eras we had those changes in kind of like the way in which we interact with celebrities and celebrity culture. Um, what I wonder is that, like, if we can see any change related to technology today, with the Uranus-Pluto trine. Uh, do you think there's anything going on there? I would think maybe with, I mean, it didn't like it started before the trine, but maybe TikTok is also changing, like the more fast paced content uh, is also changing the way in which we interact with celebrities. I don't know.
With TikTok, it definitely feels like there is definitely like it's different than Instagram, for instance, right? It feels a bit more real. It's not so um, uh, put together. Instagram always feels like there's a bit more of a I don't want to say plastic, but it's definitely a bit more polished, let's say. And TikTok is a bit more real. But as you were asking this question, immediately what came to mind is AI, right? That's the biggest thing of this Uranus-Pluto. Every Uranus-Pluto, there is a sort of a technological evolution, literally, right? Uranus is and apologies, we didn't really actually talk about what each archetype means. So Uranus is everything that has to do with creativity and freedom and independence, and it it carries this essence of the Promethean archetype, which is he's this Greek mythological figure who stole fire from the gods and liberated humanity. You can see fire.
Innovation. That's another
Yes,
type.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fire is represents that innovation, and so that is what Uranus entails. It's this sort of awakening, the light bulb going off, like seeing everything with tremendous clarity, and also just an immense amount of freedom, right? Pluto, on the other hand, is it's a bit to do more with this darker side of civilization. It's the underbelly of civilization. It has a tremendous potency and power to it. It's like the volcano that's erupting from the deep dark depths, and then creating a world as well. I mean, it's like soil. Everything comes through the poo and the shit or whatever is the soil from which things grow, right? So there's this transformative quality to Pluto as well, and that's why we consider it to be this sort of evolutionary force. So when you bring Uranus and Pluto together, it's like things are just moving at a relentless pace. We had the space race during the 1960s, and now we have the AI race happening. So yeah, I think with AI, things are going to shift the way, if we're just going to return back to the celebrity culture topic here. I think that is going to shift, because now anyone can create an AI video of Selena Gomez crying, right? You don't actually know whether that's I mean, it's AI is still developing. Maybe right now we can tell whether it's AI or not, but things are getting really good, right? To the point that we may not be able to know whether that is actually Selena Gomez or it's an AI version of Selena Gomez.
I don't know if you've seen it or if you remember, but when Kate Middleton, the uh, princess, she's still prince. Yeah, she's still the princess. Uh, when we didn't know what was going on with her, and then the royal family released some pictures of her. A lot of people believe that was AI because of a lot of like details that people who know a lot about pictures and editing and all of that kind of like saw like kind of like the cracks in the picture. I don't know if that's correct, uh, but yeah, like it has already happened that we don't know if we're seeing AI or if we're actually seeing, the celebrity that we think we're seeing. And Kate Middleton, I remember that is one of the people that we've seen that.
Yeah, and we'll kind of interesting story there, because it feels a lot like the flavors of Saturn-Neptune, coming in there along with the Uranus-Pluto, and we will dive into, maybe we can actually just go into the Saturn-Neptune part of it, because I know you have a lot to share about that and how it's creating a sense of that, especially those words, right? The death of celebrity culture is sort of really being evoked in that. And so with Saturn and Neptune, Saturn is reality. It's concrete reality. It's everything that we sort of know and feel with a sense of gravitas, and its structure, its foundation, its tradition. It's reality itself, right? I mean, and it can often be hard and painful, but it is our relationship to matter. On the other hand, Neptune is sort of otherworldly. It's nothing. It's the aspect of life that cannot actually really be touched, but perhaps esoterically felt. It's spirituality. It's mysticism. It's this sort of undivided oceanic consciousness, and it is the ideal. Saturn is the real. So there, we're just coming into this alignment. We've entered into it, and it will continue to unfold until 2027, Saturn Neptune conjunction. And so we're going to feel this sort of maybe a disconnect between the real and the ideal, or maybe even an integration. There's always both sides to these transits, right? The light and the shadow. But I think in this topic, we are definitely seeing this murkiness of Neptune, where we're not so sure what is real and what is not, while this whole technological development is taking place at the same time with AI.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I like had like as a point to talk about for today. When I was doing research on Saturn Neptune, I uh, I was reading a blog that is called Lady Kasimi, um, and she wrote that, and I thought that this was very like accurate. That when Saturn and Neptune get together, they mutually annihilate each other in certain ways, and I think that's what you were talking about. How they're like, I don't think there are opposites necessarily, like when it comes to archetypes, but in some ways, like you could say that they're opposites in that, Saturn is matter, hard matter, and it's reality, and then um, Neptune is fantasy and kind of like the basically the numinous realm, literally. Yeah. uh and yeah, like that's why when they come together, uh you can sometimes have like Neptune having this effect on Saturn, in which there's like a fogginess uh to reality, and like we don't know what's real, we don't know, like for example, like with the AI pictures of Kate Middleton, we don't know if they're actually Kate Middleton or they're AI, or even like with the Baldoni and Blake case situation. I feel like that has been like a prominent theme in that whole story. Uh, Especially at first, like I feel like, I mean, I don't know, we'll see how it unfolds, but I feel like now people are starting to like get more clarity on the situation, maybe not as much, but a little bit of clarity. But I feel like at first we kind of like didn't know who the quote unquote bad guy was. I mean, we still, I don't know, I how do you say, debatably we still don't know. But it was kind of like very confusing, because at first a lot of people were um, kind of like exposing Blake Lively and all of the quote unquote horrible things she's done. And at first we thought that Blake Lively was, the one that, uh, yeah, like the one that was in the wrong, I guess. And then stuff about Justin Baldoni started coming out, and Blake made the allegations about Baldoni after, if I'm correct. Um, and then we like didn't know like if, or like who is the one that's telling the truth. I think we still don't know. I'm talking about this in a very convoluted way, but I think you probably know what I mean. That uh, yeah, we're seeing a lot of situations in which we don't know who to trust, what's reality. Uh, yeah, there's kind of like a fogginess, uh, Neptunian fogginess in the air in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, that back and forth between Blake Lively, like, initially before anything was before any lawsuits were put out and the movie was coming out, just, randomly all these videos about about her past and the interview exactly started popping up, and people were like, "Oh, she's such a mean girl." And then, people were obviously like, what happened? Why wasn't Justin Baldoni with her taking pictures at the premiere? Speculation, that maybe they didn't agree on the way to promote the movie, all of that. And then things are quiet for about 2 months, and then suddenly she files this lawsuit. The New York Times comes out saying that, accusing him of sexual harassment, right? So then like everyone's like, oh my god, yeah, like Baldoni's, what a guy, terrible guy. Sorry, Blake Lively, we were attacking you. And then the counter lawsuit So now he and his lawyer are showing that everything is a lie. And look, of course, they're still going to go to court, but right now it does seem like he has the upper hand, and she's not looking too good. And now Taylor Swift. Okay, there we go. Let's bring this in now, because that's a very important topic as well. So we talked about, let's just categorize it right now. We talked about Uranus-Pluto and this idea that Uranus-Pluto moments are a democratization, to the masses, especially. There's a sense of a power to the masses, right? So we saw the television happen. That sense of the celebrity only being on the movie screen is now in our TV living rooms. And then at the same time, we also had celebrities in the 60s who were like very countercultural. Bob Dylan, for instance, is such a perfect example of that Uranus-Pluto era, where he wanted to go against what everyone thought that he should be doing, right? Especially with his music. He played folk music at the beginning. Everyone wanted to continue hearing that, but he didn't want to. He wanted to just do what he wanted to do. So that's a very good Uranus-Pluto example of really being authentic, powerfully authentic to yourself, and not following along tradition, right? Saturn. And then we talked about how in the 2010s we saw that with the social media and influencer culture. Suddenly these influencers are becoming as important as celebrities. It's no longer about getting the celebrities to do your promotions and your ads. It's about actually getting these influencers who actually may have more followers than these big celebrities. Right now, we hear from many celebrities that they don't get these movie opportunities unless they have a very high follower account, because that makes it easier for the film to do well as well. So there's now this competition, and it's a crazy world that we live in, but that's just how it is. And so now we're in this Uranus-Pluto era where AI is going to be the next thing. It is already the next thing. I don't really know. I can't, really say right now what that will look like, but it may just mean that if it's going to be cheaper and easier to make films with AI, then again these celebrities are going to be competing against a version of themselves that are not really real, like they were competing with the influencers during the 2010s, right? So this is like a Uranus-Pluto story. And then we have the Saturn-Neptune, which is the sense of Neptune being this aspirational image, right? Of like, wow, the celebrity. And then Saturn coming in and sort of bringing that image down, saying it's actually not what you think it is. It's kind of, it's not so amazing, and that's what we're seeing right now. And then we were going to talk about Taylor Swift and how she reflects, and I believe you may also want to mention Chapel Rowan, and how she reflects this moment. So we're coming out of another major alignment between Jupiter and Uranus. Jupiter is this sense of expansion and growth and success and achievement. And Uranus, we talked about, it's creativity and innovation, and there's this sort of sparkling feeling around it. And so Taylor Swift had an amazing year, right? She did her Eras tour, and I think sold out everywhere. In Singapore, she helped revive the economy. That's because of the sales of her tickets. I mean, it's amazing. Like she was like a real mania. That Jupiter Uranus is like a mania feeling, like what? Yeah, frenzy. And so she had that moment. And now what is happening, right? She is getting caught up in this whole Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni lawsuit. And it seems like, again, where, all of these are, we're not so sure until it goes to court. But it seems like she is, not looking too good, because she's on Blake Lively's side. And it seems like she may have had a lot of authority in this film, even though she was not technically part of this film. And so and she didn't walk away with any awards at the Grammys either, right? Surprisingly. So now we can see this sort of crash happening, which is the other side of Jupiter Uranus.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you were saying to me earlier how now that Jupiter and Uranus are kind of like moving apart from each other, um, we call that, kind of like at the end of a transit, we call that the sunset effect. And how I think from what I understand, the sunset effect is kind of like a culmination of the of the transit. Like we see, like even if they're further apart, we see like the culmination of everything that went on during the transit, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a bit I think hard for me to get super technical on that because it seems a bit more mysterious. But I do think, yeah, if you think about the sunset, there's like a bit of a saturated quality. I mean, the colors are super bright, so it does feel like things are getting a bit louder just as they start to come to an end. The way I think about this is like, I don't know about, in Mexico where you are in terms of the seasons, but in New York, just as winter is about to start or when summer is about to start, let's say, for instance, it gets really hot for 1 or 2 days, and then it gets kind of cool for a few days again. And that hotness is just it's implying that we're about to enter a major summer moment right now, but then it gets cold again, and then it gets hot again and then it stays for a very long time. So I think that coldness in between is what that sunset is about, because it's saying I'm here, I'm coming to an end, but I'm bubbling up just as I leave.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that makes sense. We don't really have seasons here in Mexico, but I do understand what you're saying. Yeah. Going back to Jupiter, Uranus, and Chapel Roan, you mentioned her. Um, I think it's interesting because we also see a kind of like a peak that, like, definitely. I mean, I don't want to say that more than with Taylor Swift. Like, it's two different stories. Uh, but we definitely also see a peak kind of like moment for Chapel, or more than peak. It's more like a breakthrough moment for her, uh, because as we know, she kind of like blew up this summer, like basically out of nowhere. She like I started listening to her when she had only like thousands of uh, listeners in Spotify, and a few weeks after, she had, I don't know how many millions of listeners, and now she's of course one of like the number one, like not number one, but like one of the top artists of today. Um, but she also had, like this crash moment in that she's been struggling a lot with fame, and we've seen, the TikToks that she's posted. Also, something that we were talking about, how uh, we kind of like get to see like this raw side of celebrities with TikTok, and we see that with Chapel Roan. And yeah, we've seen her struggle with, like the fame that she has experienced this Jupiter Uranus, which we haven't explained, but uh, Jupiter is kind of like the principle of aggrandizement. I don't know if that's how you say it, but yeah, like making everything, big, and like the principle of luck and the great benefic. We That's how we call Jupiter. And then you pair that with Uranus, which is like sudden change and uh, disruption and revolution, and we kind of have like a sudden uh, rise to fame, sudden kind of like aggrandizement of, you know celebrities, and we saw that in many different ways. But we saw that with uh, Taylor Swift, as you said, with her Eras tour, and then we saw Chapel Roan that kind of like blew up out of nowhere, and then we also saw Sabrina Carpenter, sorry, that even if she was already like pretty famous, she also blew up like considerably. And then we also saw that with Charlie XCX, which again she was also already like pretty famous but more niche, and she also blew up during Jupiter Uranus. But yeah, what I was gonna say is that uh, we've seen kind of like Chapel struggle with her sudden fame and kind of like not knowing how to handle, all of a sudden being one of the biggest stars on the planet, like from one week to another. Um, and also something that I think is very Jupiter Uranus is kind of like her being one of the main stars, because I feel like she's uh, in a different way, of course, but similar to Bob Dylan in the sense that she's super authentic. She's queer, of course. Her style is super Jupiter. I mean, also, well, I would argue that she's very Jupiter Uranus and Uranus Pluto. I actually wrote about that in our newsletter if you guys want to check it out. Uh, but yeah.
Actually, great time to just plug that in. Thank you, Vero. If you are enjoying this conversation, if you're curious to learn more and to have this sort of vibe in your life, then highly recommend subscribing to Numinous Realms bi-weekly newsletter. We publish every new moon and full moon, and it's all about this kind of stuff where we look at the biggest moments in culture, and we talk about it through we write about it through an astrological archetypal lens. Vero really did actually do amazing articles last year, such as this one on Chapel Roan, and even Charlie XCX. And most recent one, maybe you just want to just share a little bit more about what you wrote just most recently for the new moon.
The most recent article that I wrote was about the new MAC collection, the new Nudes MAC collection of lipsticks. In which, I mean, you'll have to read it if you want to know more about it. But I'll just say that MAC is bringing a lot of 90s, like kind of like iconic shades of lipsticks and lip liners. They're bringing them back in stock, and along with that, a lot of cooler shades, a lot of cool tones, because that's what we used to see a lot in the 90s. So yeah, basically like how that relates to Uranus Neptune, because we had Uranus Neptune conjunction in the 90s, and now we're having a sextile today. So yeah, basically how that correlates.
You definitely should read it. It's interesting. And we write about a range of things. I wrote about the whole AI startup in China that has suddenly come out of nowhere, DeepSeek, and how that is creating this new AI race between China and the US, and how that astrologically relates to the space race that happened in the 1960s, and what this means for America from a larger astrological lens. So we want to share these really kind of niche ideas, but also big cultural moments with you. And so please join us. You can check it out at news.numinousrealm.com and just put your name and your email in there. All right, so let's get back to it. Actually, I think you were in the middle of talking about Chapel Roan.
I was basically saying, I feel like I've said this like 3 times already, but it's interesting how we saw kind of like, and it's funny because her first album, which just won several Grammys, is called The Rise and Fall of a Midwestern Princess. And I feel like that perfectly encapsulates, kind of like what happened. Even if she's still in the rise, in like in terms of fame, we've seen how she's struggled a lot with her mental health and how she's been very vocal about it and public about it, and how not everyone agrees with that, and how she's canceled several shows because of being like super overwhelmed, because of how you know fast and uh, crazy her blow up was. Um, so yeah, we saw like her peak. I think it was like a kind of like not the start, but uh, sort of like beginning to kind of like middle of the conjunction, and then now that we're reaching the end of the conjunction, we're seeing the crash more. And I think it also, not to get too technical, but I do think that it also correlates with the Saturn Jupiter um, alignment that we had during the summer.
Yeah, it started in the summer and will continue until this summer, which is it's showing up in all these legal cases as well. I mean, especially with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. I mean, that sense of Saturn having to do with governance and our system, and Jupiter sort of representing this idea of morality and the good, right? And that sense of judging who is on the good side of history. But yeah, in terms of Chapel Rowan, I mean that sense of Jupiter Uranus expanding, having this most peak experience moment in life, but then Saturn touching that alignment and bringing in a bit of a grim reality. And what I love, I mean, I love that you've brought up these sort of younger individual stars that are rising up. You said she's kind of similar to Bob Dylan in that way because it's all about authenticity. And yes, that's exactly it. I think that this sort of the death of the celebrity culture is happening because and it's happening to all these older celebrities, right? I mean, well, maybe Justin Baldoni is a bit, and maybe that's why he's actually like not, he looks like he's winning because he is kind of fairly new in that sense. He's rising up. He's been around, but he's like, no one really knew him. Blake Lively, everyone knew since like Gossip Girl days. And, she's kind of like she's been around. She's a Nepo baby. That idea of the Nepo baby as well, right? The Kardashians have been criticized for that. So that is what's coming under criticism is now, it's what's making sense. It's these younger, Gen Z, especially like, Zendaya and Tom Holland, they're doing well because they're not living in the same way as all these other celebrities are. They're a bit more private, and just not trying to evoke some kind of celebrity status onto the world as though like they're some all-knowing figure, right? Which is what these older celebrities have done. And what's interesting is that during the election between Trump and Kamala Harris, all the celebrities were on the older celebrities were on Kamala Harris's side, but it didn't tilt. It didn't do anything. It didn't really like help the election, right? I mean, she lost at the end of the day, like pretty badly. While Trump was tapping in to all these very authentic celebrities, but more like influencers, going on the Joe Rogan podcast and just tapping into the people who are really with culture, with the masses, not above them, And I think that's what the main difference was. And that's when Uranus-Pluto does well, right? It's like you're authentic, but within the collective, you're not trying to go above it. And that's what we're seeing with these younger stars, that I think are bringing about a new sense of what celebrity culture is about. So this death of celebrity culture is really the death of the old celebrity culture, right? And that's also Saturn as well. It's the past. It's tradition that is going through a renewal in some sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, very well said. What I was also gonna add is that I think it's implied, but I feel like the Uranus Pluto trine that we're having right now um, is, as we've said, very representative of this. I think Chapel is kind of like a Uranus Pluto figure, as I was saying, sort of like Bob Dylan, and we saw that uh, at the Grammys. I don't know if you saw her speech, but she did a speech about kind of like uh, artists' rights and how the how do you say the not companies the the agencies, yeah, should pay their developing artists better and give them healthcare. And yeah, she shared, her struggles when she lost when her agency dropped her during the pandemic. And that's, very Uranus Pluto, very like something very brave to do. And it was kind of shocking because, of course, you don't expect someone to kind of like critique the agencies during the Grammys, Uh, but yeah, and like same with her TikToks, in which she's kind of like, I don't care if it's normal for celebrities to get harassed. Like, I don't want this. Um, in a weird way, we are also seeing kind of like an empowerment of celebrities, but in a different way, kind of like more like a humanization of celebrities, I would say, which is an interesting side of Uranus Pluto. Like, uh, we do not only have uh, an empowerment of the masses, but also, um, I don't know if empowerment, but kind of like a shift in power dynamics uh, when it comes to celebrities and the interactions we have with them, and yeah, like how artists are getting paid and like the benefits that they're given.
Yeah, totally. I can really see that, and as you were saying, that she's there's this more humanized side that's coming through. I personally have not seen her TikToks, so I don't want to really comment on it. But what came up as you were talking was obviously we started this show with Selena Gomez's viral video, her crying, and how much backlash that's received. Right? It's like. So I don't know what Chapel Rowan's videos are like, but it really did seem a little bit inauthentic because when you think about someone crying, if you just think about yourself in your worst moment where you're feeling super sad and you're crying, like, do you actually have time to take your camera out and film yourself crying? It's like, I mean, that just seemed really inauthentic. And also like people are talking about how she's not actually, like she has a Mexican father, but that he left a long time ago, and that there's like a bit of a disconnect there. So the fact that there's so much criticism about this is also, I feel, again, relating to that sense. Even though Selena Gomez is a young person, she's been around for a long time, since like those Disney days. I don't know when she started, but she's been around for a while. So that sense, again, she carries the Saturn quality of this world, which is now coming under scrutiny. It's as though that, if we're just talking about Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter, so these are the three planetary alignments that are cooking right now and will become even more stronger in terms of the alignment into the spring and summer of this year. So there's a quality of Jupiter and Neptune that has a bubble that's popping. Jupiter and Neptune together, it's like this inflation, and then pop, the bubble bursts. That we saw that with it all began with the whole Diddy thing this during the cycle when his empire came crumbling down, and where I think his trial is going to start in May. So there you go. As this Jupiter, Neptune, Saturn is happening, all this stuff is going to happen. All this stuff is going to come out about all these major celebrities who are hanging out with him, and it's going to be under the scrutiny of the law, so Jupiter, Saturn, and the mirage of Neptune. It's now all coming down. That's the quality that we're seeing here. And what's interesting is that in a previous cycle, during the Jupiter Neptune conjunction of 2022, 2021, we had this famous crypto CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, who was like also a superstar kind of quality. His empire came crumbling down during the Jupiter Neptune and an eclipse, which is the same thing that happened during the Diddy thing. It's a Jupiter Neptune and an eclipse was occurring. And Chris Brennan on his podcast, the astrology podcast, talks a lot about, he has an episode where empires seem to have a big collapse moment as well under these eclipses. So very interesting to see this sort of correlation. I think we're just going to deepen into it. Another one I have is Michael Jackson in 1993, 1994 had his first allegations against sexual harassment, and that was during a Jupiter Neptune's, I believe Saturn as well, maybe, but it was a Jupiter Neptune for sure. And so that bubble popping of this large, ideal image of these untouchable celebrities is now, the bubble is popping. And with Saturn, there's a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's there's an authority now, external authority coming in and judging. That's it, judgment. They are being judged. That is what is coming through. I feel with these three archetypes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting, the correlations of Jupiter, Neptune, and the eclipses, and these empires falling, and Diddy. Basically he had an empire of sorts, and it's crumbling right now. Now that we're talking about Diddy, I feel like it's a great segue to talk about how, well, actually, when I was doing my research on celebrity culture and Saturn Neptune in particular, I bumped into some facts, I guess you could say, that I thought were really interesting. I was watching a wisecrack video on YouTube on celebrity culture and kind of like how celebrity culture is dying. And he quoted a scholar who's called Leo Brody, who says that there appears to be an inverse relationship between the prioritization of fame and the concept of the afterlife. In other words, that societies that don't believe in the promise of heaven are more likely to believe in the promise of fame. And I thought that was really interesting when we think of Neptune and how it correlates both with celebrity and also with spirituality and religion, and how now, as it seems in society, fandom is the new religion in some way. How we idolize celebrities in the same way that we used to or still idolize religious figures, and how all of this with this Saturn-Neptune alignment is crumbling down, and how we're having like this crisis of faith in some sense, like the twilight of the idols, in the same way that we've had that with religion, which actually another fact that I realized, I guess, or came upon, was that interestingly, when Nietzsche announced that God is dead, it was during the Saturn-Neptune conjunction of 1881 and 1882. So yeah, I feel like there's a correlation going on, in the sense that we're having like this twilight of the idols, as Nietzsche would say, but now instead of religion is celebrity culture, something that's become very religious for our society.
Mm. Yeah, I love that quote by Nietzsche, and I've been really thinking about it a lot. And I wrote an article last year titled "God is not dead," and it's also the opposite of I mean, it's funny that these alignments carry both. It's paradoxical in that sense. It can carry the complete negation, and it can also carry the other side as well. And maybe that's the nature of Saturn too. But um, we're also seeing a return to religion lately. Interestingly, during the Saturn Neptune, a lot of people are returning, especially Christianity is uh, is having a moment. A lot of the one that I did write about was Russell Brand. He's a also a YouTuber, but he was an actor, and in the 2010s he was like known to be this very like promiscuous guy, like having sex with a lot of women, and now he's found, he's found God, and he got baptized, and and that's happening to a lot of people. I'm actually personally meeting a lot of younger people who are feeling very religious, and I can say that for myself as well. So both, God is dead and God is not dead at the same time. It depends on how you are relating to life. So I think it's interesting that what you're saying is that, yeah, instead of God, this sort of celebrity is how takes that place. Anything can really take that place of God, that we start to idealize. And so, in a resonant way to what Nietzsche was saying, celebrity is dead in that sense, right? Also, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that people are going back to religion, because if we are kind of like losing uh, celebrity, uh, even if it's very unconscious, I do think there might be a correlation there. As this scholar said, there appears to be a relationship between the prioritization of fame and the concept of the afterlife. So maybe it that's what's going on. The prioritization of fame is going down, and religion is going up, maybe.
I feel that I can see that, and that's a quality of Saturn Neptune that I think is kind of nice, which is that it has a calming effect. I mean, it's like these two archetypal principles that are a bit more lower energy compared to Uranus-Pluto, which is super like intense, high energy feeling. And so it does feel like there's a calming effect of not being so enamored by that which is you know I don't want to say it's outside of you, because it does feel like sometimes God, well, actually, maybe this is the difference, is like that people feel like God is like part of them, but can you feel that about a celebrity? No, not so much, right? Because there is a separation there. So I think that is a interesting evolution, and a very fine one from my perspective as of now. Obviously religion has had its ups and downs, and there's a bit of dogma there. That's why I personally feel like archetypal cosmology, astrology, is actually the next frontier, where it helps you relate to the gods rather than one god. And so it'll be interesting, especially with astrology. We're seeing a rise in as well, where more and more people are finding solace in that. And so, yeah, I think with this celebrity, the death of the celebrity, um, the way I see it is there's Uranus-Pluto trine happening, and the power of authenticity is only going to go up. So those celebrities who are willing to sort of die to their idea of what it means to be a celebrity, and instead, you know, people like Chapel Rowan, like really saying it as it is, not being afraid, channeling a bit of that Bob Dylan vibe as well. Maybe even channeling people like the couple like Zendaya and Tom Holland, who are very private. They don't really share so much about their life. They do they do their thing really well, but they're a bit more on the private side. Who knows? Maybe that is what's needed.
Mm. maybe not influencers per se, but I think we'll continue to see the rise of people, like you and me, that, anyone can make content, these days. And I think that's also something that kind of like blew up during the Uranus-Pluto square of the 2010s. And I think we'll continue to see that we'll see the rise of authentic celebrities and, normal people as well that just, make content at home, hopefully.
Yeah, I totally believe that as well. I mean, that Uranus Pluto quality of the power to the masses, is totally active, and 100% we're seeing a lot of that. People who are sometimes you may not know, but I know, have like 7 million subscribers on YouTube. So and they're not well known to a lot of people, but there you go. There's a bunch of people on another side of the world who know them, and they have a lot of power and a lot of great ideas to share with the world. So yeah, it makes it easier, that technological aspect of Uranus, Pluto, giving a lot of potency to any individual who's willing to interact in that way with the world. And so yeah, I think there's a lot to that will happen in this year with the Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune alignment, especially. Right, this year is going to be interesting. I do believe that actually all the outer planets are going to be in alignment this year for the first time in a very long time. So we're actually going to have a Saturn Uranus sextile as well. We won't really go into that right now, but that is going to be there too. And so yeah, I think we'll have to keep tracking this story. And who knows what's going to happen with the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, Diddy situation. Also waiting to see, will Justin Bieber, say anything? What will happen to Jay-Z? There's just so much up in the air, right? That's the quality.
Yeah. Also, something that I wanted to say, maybe this is like more niche. Yeah, most definitely is more niche, but uh, either way, it's very related to all of these. I I've seen the rise of like YouTubers that are like celebrity gossip YouTubers, but instead of being like merely celebrity gossip, kind of like reporters, um, they're exposing, all of this that's going on in Hollywood. And I think we started to see that since the Free Britney movement that happened during the Uranus-Pluto square. Um, so yeah, something interesting that I think they started having like these channels exposing everything that's been going on in Hollywood. It started during the Uranus-Pluto square, but I think we're seeing them really blow up now that we're also having this Saturn-Neptune-Jupiter alignment. So
yeah, that's super interesting. I'm definitely, I'm really keeping track of this story, obviously. So I've been watching some of these people, and their videos, and it does seem like the internet is really coming together to expose a lot of these things, which is so Uranus Pluto as well, but yeah, I think it's just kind of crazy to just watch all of this unfold and to see. I believe in the lawsuit from Baldoni, he's like including his lawyers, including how the internet, people on the internet exposed the New York Times metadata to show that they were actually working on the story before Blake Lively even filed the lawsuit. So, and that's because of people on the internet, people like you and me. We're exposing the lies and the hypocrisy of some of these things, and we're helping, together we're making sure that this world is keeping its integrity intact, and that not only the people who are on top and who have a lot of power and fame are the ones who are running the world, but no, it's us, people like you and me, who actually have this power to help the world, realize that it has its um, integrity intact. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where all of this goes. So I don't know if you have any last thoughts you want to share, or
I think we've covered a lot of ground. So
okay, cool.
yeah,
Well, thank you all for tuning in to Cosmos of Culture. Let us know in the comments. What some of your thoughts are. If you have any ideas of how all of this will unfold. We have a lot of trials coming up this year with the Diddy, and then obviously next year with Blake Lively and Baldoni. Um, and what you think about this death of celebrity culture? Where do you think it's heading? We'd love to know what you think, and make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for more. Thank you for tuning in.
thank you.